The scorching sun beat down mercilessly on the bustling streets of Los Angeles, its golden rays reflecting off the sleek glass facades of towering skyscrapers. Among the sea of designer suits and polished shoes, one figure stood out like a sore thumb: Ethan Foster, a humble janitor making his way to Goldcrest Industries, the most prestigious corporation in the city. Ethan's weathered work boots scuffed against the immaculate marble floor of the Goldcrest lobby, leaving faint marks that he would later have to clean. His calloused hands clutched a worn leather satchel, a stark contrast to the gleaming briefcases carried by the executives rushing past him. As he made his way to the service elevator, whispers and sneers followed in his wake. "Look at that pathetic excuse for a man," muttered Brad Thompson, the company's ruthless CFO, to his sycophantic assistant. "I bet he can barely afford to eat, let alone dress properly." Ethan's keen ears caught the cruel words, but he kept his head down, a sad smile playing on his lips. If only they knew the truth hidden beneath his shabby exterior. As the elevator doors closed, Ethan allowed himself a moment of vulnerability. He leaned against the cold metal wall, memories of a different life flashing before his eyes, a life of luxury, power, and respect. But that was all gone now, swept away by a tide of betrayal and deceit. The elevator pinged, jolting Ethan back to reality. He straightened his worn uniform and stepped out into the basement level, ready to begin another day of thankless work. Meanwhile, in the opulent top-floor office, CEO Maxwell Goldcrest reclined in his Italian leather chair, a crystal tumbler of aged whiskey in hand. The door burst open, and Brad Thompson strode in, a malicious glint in his eye. "Max, you won't believe what I just saw," Brad sneered, pouring himself a drink. "That janitor, Foster, trying to blend in with the real employees. It's pathetic." Maxwell's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Ah, yes. Our resident charity case. Sometimes I wonder why we even keep him around. Maybe for entertainment?" Brad suggested, earning a hearty laugh from his boss. Little did they know, their casual cruelty was about to set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of their privileged lives. As the day wore on, Ethan diligently went about his duties, cleaning floors, emptying trash cans, and maintaining the pristine appearance of Goldcrest Industries. His mind, however, was far away, lost in bittersweet memories of his past life. It was during one of these moments of reverie that fate decided to intervene. As Ethan was mopping the corridor outside the boardroom, he overheard a heated conversation that made his blood run cold. "We need to move quickly," Maxwell's voice hissed. "If word gets out about the toxic waste dump, we're finished." "I don't care how you do it, Brad, but make sure those environmental reports disappear." Ethan's hand tightened around the mop handle. The old fire of justice that he had long suppressed began to flicker to life. But what could a mere janitor do against the might of Goldcrest Industries? As if in answer to his unspoken question, a petite figure rounded the corner, nearly colliding with Ethan's mop bucket. "Oh, I'm so sorry," exclaimed a melodious voice. Ethan looked up, his breath catching in his throat. Before him stood the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her warm brown eyes sparkled with kindness, and her smile could melt the coldest heart. "No harm done, miss," Ethan managed to stammer, quickly moving his cleaning equipment aside. "I'm Lily," she said, extending her hand. "Lily Chen. I'm new here, starting in the PR department today." Ethan hesitated for a moment before shaking her hand. "Ethan Foster. I keep things clean around here." Lily's smile widened. "Well, Ethan, I'd say you're doing an excellent job. This place is spotless." For the first time in years, Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest. Someone had seen him, truly seen him, not just the janitor's uniform he wore. Their moment was shattered by the boardroom door flying open. Maxwell Goldcrest emerged, his face twisted in anger. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. "Miss Chen," he barked, I hope you're not wasting time fraternizing with the help. We have a company to run." Lily's cheeks flushed with indignation. "Mr. Goldcrest, I was just Dash." "Save it," Maxwell interrupted. "Foster, don't you have toilets to scrub?" Ethan lowered his eyes, the familiar cloak of invisibility settling over him once more. "Yes, sir." "Right away, sir." As Ethan shuffled away, he could feel Lily's sympathetic gaze on his back. Little did any of them know that this chance encounter would be the catalyst for a series of events that would turn their worlds upside down. That night, as Ethan trudged home to his tiny studio apartment in a rundown part of town, his mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The cruelty of Maxwell and Brad, the corruption he had uncovered, and the unexpected kindness of Lily, it all swirled together, threatening to overwhelm him. He unlocked the door to his apartment, the hinges creaking in protest. The space was sparse but meticulously clean, a habit from his old life that he couldn't shake. Ethan's eyes fell on a small wooden box hidden in the corner of his closet. With trembling hands, he retrieved it and sat on his threadbare couch. Inside the box lay the remnants of his past, newspaper clippings, photographs, and a single platinum cufflink engraved with the initials EF. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he allowed himself to remember the man he once was: Ethan Fairchild, brilliant environmental lawyer and crusader for justice. 5 years ago, Ethan had been on top of the world. His law firm was thriving, he had just won a landmark case against a major corporation for illegal dumping, and he was engaged to be married to the love of his life, Sophia. But in one cruel twist of fate, it had all been ripped away from him. A knock at the door startled Ethan from his reverie. Hastily wiping his eyes, he shoved the box under the couch and went to answer. To his shock, Lily Chin stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable and out of place in the dingy building. "Lily? What are you doing here?" Ethan asked, stunned. She bit her lip nervously. "I'm sorry to bother you, Ethan. I followed you home. I know that sounds crazy, but after what happened today, I couldn't stop thinking about you. There's something different about you, something that doesn't add up." Ethan's heart raced. He should turn her away, protect his secrets, but something in her earnest expression made him hesitate. "Please," Lily continued, "I think you overheard something important in that boardroom. Something dangerous. I've only been at Goldcrest for a day, but I can already tell there's corruption at the highest levels. I want to help, but I can't do it alone." For a long moment, Ethan stood frozen in indecision. The part of him that had been beaten down and humiliated for years screamed to shut the door and forget about justice. But the long-dormant fire in his soul, rekindled by Lily's kindness, urged him to take a stand. With a deep breath, Ethan stepped aside. "Come in, Lily. There's something I need to show you." As Lily entered the humble apartment, Ethan retrieved the wooden box from its hiding place. His hands shook as he opened it, revealing the truth of his past to this virtual stranger. Lily's eyes widened as she sifted through the contents. "Ethan Fairchild?" she gasped, looking up at him in awe. "The environmental lawyer who disappeared 5 years ago after the Hartley Industries scandal? But how? Why?" Ethan sank onto the couch, the weight of his secrets finally lifting. "It's a long story, Lily. One filled with betrayal, frame-ups, and powerful enemies. I lost everything: my career, my fiancé, my very identity. Taking this job at Goldcrest, right under the nose of one of the worst polluters in the country, was my way of trying to gather evidence and clear my name." Lily sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. "Ethan, this is incredible. With your legal expertise and my position in PR, we might actually have a chance at exposing Goldcrest's corruption." For the first time in years, hope blossomed in Ethan's chest. But with it came fear of having everything ripped away from him once again. "It's dangerous, Lily," he warned. "Maxwell Goldcrest and his cronies will stop at nothing to protect their interests. Are you sure you want to get involved?" Lily's eyes blazed with determination. "I've spent my whole life playing it safe, Ethan. But seeing you today, enduring their cruelty with such dignity, it made me realize that sometimes we have to take a stand, no matter the cost." As they sat there, two unlikely allies in the fight against corporate greed, neither Ethan nor Lily could have imagined the perilous journey that lay ahead, a journey that would test their courage, their convictions, and the newfound connection blossoming between them. Across town, in his luxurious penthouse, Maxwell Goldcrest paced nervously, a tumbler of scotch clutched in his trembling hand. "This can't be happening," he muttered, running his fingers through his salt and pepper hair. The door to his study burst open, and Brad Thompson stormed in, his face ashen. "Max, we've got a problem. A big one." Maxwell's eyes narrowed. "What now?" Brad thrust a tablet into his boss's hands. On the screen was an old newspaper article featuring a younger, more polished version of their janitor. The headline read, "Rising star lawyer Ethan Fairchild takes on corporate giants." "Our janitor," Brad hissed, "is Ethan fucking Fairchild." Maxwell's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the imported marble floor. "Impossible," he whispered, but the evidence was irrefutable. "He must be gathering evidence against us," Brad continued, panic rising in his voice. "All this time, right under our noses." Maxwell's shock quickly gave way to cold, calculated anger. "No," he growled, "I destroyed Ethan Fairchild once before. I'll do it again, and this time, I'll make sure there's nothing left of him to rise from the ashes." As the first rays of dawn broke over the Los Angeles skyline, neither the humble janitor nor the ruthless CEO realized that their long-simmering conflict was about to explode into a battle that would leave no one unscathed. In his tiny apartment, Ethan tossed and turned, his dreams haunted by the ghosts of his past. Beside him on the rickety coffee table, his ancient flip phone buzzed with an incoming text. The message, from an unknown number, contained just 4 words. "They know. Be careful." The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of Goldcrest Industries and force everyone involved to confront the true nature of power, redemption, and the cost of justice. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the city, Ethan Foster, once a celebrated lawyer, now a humble janitor, steeled himself for the fight of his life. With Lily by his side and the weight of his past propelling him forward, he was ready to reclaim his identity and bring down the corrupt empire that had stolen everything from him. Little did he know, the path ahead would be fraught with more danger, betrayal, and shocking revelations than he could ever have imagined. The morning sun had barely peeked over the Los Angeles skyline when Ethan Foster arrived at Goldcrest Industries. His heart raced as he recalled the cryptic text message from the night before. "They know. Be careful." Every shadow seemed to hide a potential threat, every casual glance from a coworker a possible sign of betrayal. As Ethan made his way to the janitor's closet, a familiar voice called out, stopping him in his tracks. "Foster! My office, now." Maxwell Goldcrest's commanding tone echoed through the lobby, drawing curious stares from early morning employees. Ethan's palms began to sweat as he followed the CEO to the executive elevator, acutely aware of the contrast between his worn uniform and Maxwell's impeccable suit. The ride to the top floor was tense, filled with an oppressive silence. Maxwell's steely gaze never left Ethan, a predatory gleam in his eyes that sent chills down the janitor's spine. As they entered the opulent office, Ethan's eyes were drawn to a figure already waiting for them, Brad Thompson, the CFO, whose smug grin did little to ease Ethan's apprehension. "Sit down, Foster," Maxwell commanded, gesturing to a plush leather chair. "Or should I say, Mr. Fairchild?" The use of his real name hit Ethan like a physical blow. He struggled to maintain his composure, years of practice in hiding his true identity warring with the surge of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir," Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Maxwell's laugh was cold and mirthless. "Come now, Ethan. The game is up. Did you really think you could fool us forever? Hiding in plain sight, gathering evidence, it's almost admirable, in a pathetic sort of way." Brad chimed in, his voice dripping with disdain. "We know everything, Fairchild. Your illustrious career, your fall from grace, and your sad attempt at redemption. It's over." Ethan's mind raced. How much did they really know? And more importantly, how could he protect Lily and the evidence they had begun to gather? "If you know who I am," Ethan said slowly, deciding to change tactics, "then you know what I'm capable of. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Maxwell's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That depends entirely on you, Mr. Fairchild. We can make this very easy, or very, very difficult." Before Ethan could respond, the office door burst open. Lily Chen strode in, her face a mask of determination. "I'm sorry I'm late for the meeting, Mr. Goldcrest. I hope I haven't missed anything important." The tension in the room shifted palpably. Maxwell's confident smirk faltered for a moment as he regarded the newcomer with suspicion. "Miss Chen," he said smoothly, recovering quickly. "I don't recall inviting you to this discussion." Lily's smile was sweetly poisonous. "Oh, but as head of PR, I thought it prudent to be involved in any situation that might affect the company's image." "And a clandestine meeting with a janitor? That certainly piqued my interest." Ethan marveled at Lily's poise, grateful for her timely intervention but terrified of the danger she was placing herself in. Maxwell's jaw clenched visibly. "Very well," he growled. "Since you're here, you might as well stay. We were just discussing Mr. Foster's unique qualifications for his position." The next hour was a delicate dance of veiled threats and carefully worded statements. Ethan and Lily worked in tandem, neither confirming nor denying the accusations while trying to gauge exactly how much Maxwell and Brad truly knew. As the confrontation drew to a close, Maxwell leaned back in his chair, a predatory smile playing on his lips. "Here's what's going to happen," he announced. "Mr. Fairchild, or Foster, whatever you prefer, you will continue your duties as if nothing has changed. But make no mistake, we'll be watching your every move. One step out of line, one whisper to the wrong person, and not only will you be finished, but I'll make sure everyone you care about goes down with you." His gaze shifted to Lily. "As for you, Miss Chen, I suggest you think very carefully about where your loyalties lie. Hitching your wagon to a fallen star like Fairchild here could have unfortunate consequences for your promising career." With that ominous warning hanging in the air, Maxwell dismissed them. As Ethan and Lily rode the elevator back down to the lower floors, a heavy silence fell between them. "I'm so sorry," Lily whispered once they were alone. "I should have been more careful. I never meant to put you in danger." Ethan shook his head, a sad smile on his face. "You have nothing to apologize for, Lily. If anything, I should be thanking you. Your quick thinking in there might have just saved us both." As the elevator doors opened, Ethan placed a gentle hand on Lily's arm. "We need to be more careful than ever now. Meet me at Sunset Park after work. We have a lot to discuss." With a nod of understanding, Lily stepped out of the elevator, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and the weight of their precarious situation. The rest of the day passed in a blur of tension and hypervigilance. Ethan went about his custodial duties mechanically, all too aware of the watchful eyes that seemed to follow his every move. In the break room, conversations would hush as he entered. In the hallways, executives who had previously ignored his existence now regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city, Ethan made his way to Sunset Park. The peaceful oasis in the heart of Los Angeles was a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling within him. He found Lily waiting on a secluded bench, her face etched with worry. "Are you sure we weren't followed?" she asked as Ethan sat beside her. He nodded grimly. "I took every precaution. But we can't stay long. Maxwell's reach is long, and we can't afford to take any chances." For the next hour, they spoke in hushed tones, formulating a plan to gather the evidence they needed to bring down Goldcrest Industries. Lily's position in PR gave her access to sensitive documents, while Ethan's janitorial duties allowed him to move unnoticed through all areas of the building. "We need to be smart about this," Ethan cautioned. "Maxwell and Brad are on high alert now. One wrong move and it's all over." Lily's eyes blazed with determination. "We can't back down now, Ethan. Not when we're so close. Think of all the people Goldcrest has hurt, all the lives they've ruined. We might be the only ones who can stop them." As they finalized their plans, neither noticed the figure lurking in the shadows nearby, listening intently to every word. The next few weeks were a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Ethan and Lily worked tirelessly to gather evidence of Goldcrest's illegal activities, all while maintaining the facade of loyal employees. Every stolen document, every overheard conversation, every late-night foray into restricted areas brought them closer to their goal and closer to discovery. One evening, as Ethan was emptying trash cans in the executive suite, he overheard a heated argument between Maxwell and Brad. "We can't keep this up forever, Max," Brad hissed. "The EPA is breathing down our necks, and that new environmental bill in Congress could ruin us if it passes." Maxwell's response was cold and calculated. "Then we'll make sure it doesn't pass. Call Senator Williams. Remind him of our generous contributions to his campaign fund. And if that doesn't work, well, everyone has skeletons in their closet. Find his." Ethan's blood ran cold at the casual way they discussed corrupting the political process. He knew he had to act fast. That night, as Ethan pored over the evidence they had collected in his tiny apartment, a soft knock at the door made him freeze. Heart pounding, he approached cautiously, ready for the worst. To his surprise, it was Sophia, his ex-fiancée, looking as beautiful and conflicted as the day she had walked out of his life 5 years ago. "Ethan," she breathed, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. I need to talk to you. It's important." Stunned, Ethan could only step aside and let her in. As Sophia settled on his worn couch, the air between them crackled with unresolved emotions and painful memories. "I know what you're doing, Ethan," Sophia began, her voice barely above a whisper. "With Goldcrest. The evidence you're gathering. You're in terrible danger." Ethan's mind reeled. How could she possibly know? "Sophia, I don't understand. How did you?" "Because I've been working for them," she interrupted, shame coloring her words. After everything that happened with you, Maxwell offered me a job. I was lost, hurt, and he seemed so kind. But I didn't know then what I know now." The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. Sophia, working for the very people who had destroyed his life? It seemed too cruel to be true. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked, struggling to keep the bitterness from his voice. Sophia's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "Because I can't be part of it anymore. What they're doing, it's monstrous, Ethan. And seeing you these past weeks, watching you fight against them at great personal risk, it reminded me of the man I fell in love with. The man I never should have abandoned." She reached into her purse and pulled out a USB drive. This contains everything. Financial records, emails, recordings of board meetings. It's all the proof you need to bring Goldcrest down once and for all. Ethan stared at the small device, scarcely able to believe what he was hearing. Sophia, do you realize how dangerous this is? If Maxwell finds out you've done this. I know the risks, she cut him off. But it's time I stood up for what's right. It's the least I can do after everything. As Ethan took the USB drive, their fingers brushed, sending a jolt of electricity through them both. For a moment, they were transported back to happier times, before betrayal and heartbreak had torn them apart. Thank you, Ethan said softly. This changes everything. Sophia stood, smoothing her skirt nervously. Be careful, Ethan. Maxwell is more dangerous than you know. And I'm sorry. For everything. With that, she was gone, leaving Ethan alone with the weight of new possibilities and old wounds reopened. The next day, Ethan could barely contain his excitement as he met Lily in a secluded corner of the Goldcrest building. We've got it, he whispered, showing her the USB drive. Everything we need to take them down. Lily's eyes widened. Ethan, that's incredible. But how? As Ethan explained Sophia's unexpected visit and the treasure trove of evidence she had provided, he couldn't help but notice a flicker of something. Hurt? Jealousy? Crossed Lily's face. We need to act fast, Lily said, pushing aside whatever emotions she was feeling. If we can get this to the right people, Goldcrest is finished. But as they began to formulate their plan, neither of them noticed the security camera silently recording their every move, nor the malicious smile that spread across Maxwell Goldcrest's face as he watched the footage in real time. Gotcha, he murmured, reaching for his phone. Brad, initiate Operation Scorched Earth. It's time to remind Mr. Fairchild why he should have stayed in the shadows where he belongs. As night fell over Los Angeles, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, mirroring the tempest that was about to engulf Ethan, Lily, and everyone caught in the crossfire of their dangerous game. Across town, in a dimly lit bar, Brad Thompson nursed a whiskey, his usual smug demeanor replaced by a look of grim determination. Beside him sat a rough-looking man with a scar running down his cheek, Jimmy the Cleaner Moretti, known in certain circles for making problems disappear. I don't care how you do it, Brad growled, sliding an envelope stuffed with cash across the bar. Just make sure Fairchild and that nosy PR girl are out of the picture. Permanently. Jimmy pocketed the envelope without counting it. Consider it done. But you might want to lay low for a while, Mr. Thompson. Things are about to get messy. As Brad left the bar, a chill ran down his spine. He had crossed a line, one from which there was no coming back. But with everything at stake, he convinced himself it was a necessary evil. Meanwhile, Ethan tossed and turned in his small apartment, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The USB drive Sophia had given him felt like a ticking time bomb under his pillow. He knew he should feel elated. They finally had the means to bring down Goldcrest Industries and clear his name. But instead, a sense of impending doom hung over him like a shroud. A sharp knock at the door jolted Ethan from his restless thoughts. Cautiously, he approached, peering through the peephole. His heart skipped a beat when he saw Lily standing in the hallway, her face pale and drawn. "Lily," he said, quickly unchaining the door. "What's wrong?" "It's the middle of the night." She brushed past him, her eyes wild with fear. "We've been compromised, Ethan. I don't know how, but Maxwell knows. He knows everything." Ethan's blood ran cold. "How can you be sure?" Lily pulled out her phone, showing him a text message from an unknown number. It contained only 2 words, "Game over." "This was sent to everyone in the company," Lily explained, her voice trembling. along with photos of us meeting, discussing the evidence. They're painting us as corporate spies, Ethan. We're being set up to take the fall for everything Goldcrest has done. The reality of their situation crashed down on Ethan like a tidal wave. Everything they had worked for, all the risks they had taken, it was all unraveling before their eyes. "We need to leave," Ethan said, already moving to grab the few possessions he couldn't bear to leave behind. "Now. It's not safe here anymore." As they hurried down the fire escape, the sound of screeching tires filled the air. Black SUVs with tinted windows converged on the apartment building, men in dark suits pouring out onto the street. "Run!" Ethan yelled, grabbing Lily's hand as they sprinted down the alley. Their hearts pounding, they weaved through the labyrinth of back streets and hidden passages that Ethan had mapped out for just such an emergency. Behind them, they could hear shouts and the pounding of feet as their pursuers gave chase. As they rounded a corner, a figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. Ethan skidded to a halt, pushing Lily behind him protectively. Well, drawled a familiar voice. "If it isn't the dynamic duo." Brad Thompson emerged into the dim light of a street lamp, a sinister smile playing on his lips. In his hand, he held a pistol, its barrel gleaming menacingly. "Did you really think you could take on Goldcrest and win?" Brad sneered. "You're nothing, Fairchild. A washed-up lawyer playing at being a hero. And you," he turned his gaze to Lily, just a naive little girl way out of her depth. Ethan's mind raced, searching for a way out. But with Brad in front of them and the sound of their pursuers growing closer behind, their options were rapidly dwindling. "It's over," Brad continued, raising the gun. "Time to tie up loose ends." Just as his finger tightened on the trigger, a voice rang out from the darkness. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mr. Thompson." Sophia stepped into view, her own weapon trained steadily on Brad. "Drop the gun. Now." Brad's eyes widened in shock as he found himself caught in an unexpected standoff. The alley fell silent, the only sound the distant wail of sirens growing ever closer. "Sophia?" Ethan breathed, scarcely able to believe what he was seeing. His ex-fiancée stood firm, her gaze never wavering from Brad as she kept her weapon trained on him. "I told you to be careful, Ethan," Sophia said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips despite the tension in her voice. "Did you really think I'd leave you to face this alone?" Brad's composure cracked, his eyes darting between Sophia, Ethan, and Lily. "You're making a big mistake," he snarled. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Oh, I think we do," Lily chimed in, her initial shock giving way to determination. "A bunch of corrupt businessmen who thought they could play God with people's lives. Well, guess what? The game is over." The sound of running footsteps echoed through the alley, growing louder by the second. Brad's face twisted into a triumphant sneer. "You hear that? That's the cavalry coming to clean up this little mess. You're finished, all of you." But as a group of figures rounded the corner, it wasn't Maxwell's hired thugs who appeared. Instead, a team of FBI agents in tactical gear flooded the alley, weapons drawn. "FBI! Everybody freeze!" shouted the lead agent, a stern-faced woman with steely eyes. Brad's face drained of color as he realized the trap he'd walked into. Slowly, he lowered his weapon, defeat written across his features. As the FBI agents swarmed around them, Ethan turned to Sophia, his mind reeling. How did you manage this?" Sophia holstered her weapon, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering sadness. "I've been working with the FBI for months, Ethan. After I gave you that USB drive, I contacted them. We've been building a case against Goldcrest Industries, but we needed to catch them in the act. You and Lily, you were the perfect bait." The realization hit Ethan like a physical blow. You used us? Put us in danger deliberately? I'm sorry, Sophia said softly. I never wanted to put you at risk, but it was the only way to bring down the entire operation. Maxwell, Brad, all of them, they're going away for a long, long time. As the FBI agents began reading Brad his rights, Ethan felt a small hand slip into his. He turned to see Lily looking up at him, her eyes filled with a mix of emotions he couldn't quite decipher. It's over, she whispered. We did it. But even as relief washed over him, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The web of lies, betrayal, and corruption they'd uncovered went deeper than any of them could have imagined. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of interrogations, depositions, and media frenzy. The downfall of Goldcrest Industries dominated the headlines, with Ethan and Lily finding themselves thrust into the spotlight as whistleblowers and unlikely heroes. As Ethan sat in a plush office at the FBI headquarters, he couldn't help but marvel at how quickly his life had changed. Just weeks ago, he had been a nameless janitor, invisible to the world. Now, his face was plastered across every news channel, his story captivating the nation. Special Agent Sarah Hawkins, the stern-faced woman who had led the raid, sat across from him, a thick file open on the desk between them. Mr. Fairchild, she began, her tone businesslike but not unkind, I want to thank you for your cooperation in this investigation. Your testimony, along with the evidence provided by Ms. Chen and Ms. Carlton, has been invaluable in building our case against Goldcrest. Ethan nodded, still struggling to process everything that had happened. What happens now? He asked. Agent Hawkins leaned back in her chair, studying him intently. That depends on you, Mr. Fairchild. We've reviewed your case from 5 years ago, the one that led to your sabbatical. Her choice of words made it clear she knew the full extent of what he'd been through. In light of recent events, the Justice Department is prepared to fully exonerate you. Your law license can be reinstated, if that's what you want. The offer hung in the air, tantalizing and terrifying all at once. Ethan's mind raced with the possibilities. He could reclaim his old life, the career he'd worked so hard to build. But was that what he truly wanted anymore? I need some time to think about it, he said finally. Agent Hawkins nodded understandingly. Of course. Take all the time you need. But there's one more thing you should know. She paused, her expression growing serious. Maxwell Goldcrest is still at large. Ethan's blood ran cold. What? How is that possible? He fled the country shortly before we made our move, Hawkins explained. We have alerts out at every airport and border crossing, but so far, he's managed to evade capture. And a man with his resources, well, he could be anywhere. The implications of this news settled over Ethan like a heavy shroud. As long as Maxwell was free, none of them were truly safe. As he left the FBI office, his mind swirling with conflicting emotions, Ethan found Lily waiting for him in the lobby. The sight of her brought a warmth to his chest that he was only now beginning to fully understand. How did it go? She asked, concern etched across her features. Ethan filled her in on his conversation with Agent Hawkins, watching as her expression shifted from hope to worry at the news of Maxwell's escape. What are you going to do? Lily asked softly as they walked out into the bright Los Angeles sunshine. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. Part of me wants to go back to my old life, pick up where I left off. But after everything we've been through, I'm not sure I can just pretend none of it happened. Lily stopped, turning to face him. Ethan, whatever you decide, I want you to know. I'm here for you. These past weeks, working together, facing danger, it's shown me what an incredible person you are. And I care about you. More than I probably should. Her confession hung in the air between them, charged with possibility. Ethan felt his heart race as he looked into Lily's eyes, seeing the depth of emotion there. But before he could respond, a commotion down the street caught their attention. A crowd had gathered around a street corner, all eyes fixed on the large video billboard that dominated the intersection. As Ethan and Lily approached, they saw what had captured everyone's attention. Maxwell Goldcrest's face filled the screen, his expression a mixture of defiance and barely contained rage. "Citizens of Los Angeles," his voice boomed out over the stunned crowd, "you've been lied to. The so-called heroes who brought down Goldcrest Industries are nothing but frauds and criminals themselves." Ethan felt Lily's hand tighten around his as Maxwell continued his tirade. Ethan Fairchild, the disgraced lawyer turned janitor, and Lily Chen, a corporate spy, these are the people you're celebrating? They've destroyed thousands of jobs, ruined lives, all in the name of their misguided crusade. The crowd began to murmur, some casting suspicious glances at Ethan and Lily as they recognized them from the news reports. "But I'm not finished," Maxwell declared, his eyes seeming to bore directly into the camera. "To Ethan Fairchild, I say this: you took everything from me, and now I'm going to return the favor. Every secret, every skeleton in your closet, I'm going to drag them all into the light. And when I'm done, you'll wish you'd never crawled out of whatever hole you've been hiding in these past 5 years." The screen went black, leaving the street in stunned silence. Ethan stood frozen, the weight of Maxwell's threat settling over him like a suffocating blanket. Lily squeezed his hand, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan? What did he mean? What secrets?" But Ethan couldn't answer. His mind was racing, replaying every moment of the past 5 years, every compromise he'd made, every line he'd crossed in his quest for justice. He had thought exposing Goldcrest's corruption would be the end of his journey. Now, he realized, it was only the beginning. As the crowd around them began to disperse, some still casting wary glances their way, Ethan made a decision. He couldn't run anymore. It was time to face his past, confront the demons he'd been hiding from, and finish this fight once and for all. "Come on," he said to Lily, his voice filled with a determination he didn't entirely feel. "We need to talk to Agent Hawkins. If Maxwell wants a war, we'll give him one." As they made their way back to the FBI building, Ethan's phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from an unknown number, but the content made his blood run cold. "Did you really think it would be that easy, Ethan? The game is far from over. Meet me where it all began, or the next headline will be about the tragic demise of your precious Lily Chen. You have 24 hours. Ethan's mind raced. Where it all began, there was only one place that could mean. The abandoned chemical plant on the outskirts of the city, where he had first uncovered evidence of Goldcrest's illegal dumping 5 years ago. The place where his life had begun to unravel. He glanced at Lily, laughing at something on her phone, blissfully unaware of the new threat hanging over them. In that moment, Ethan made a decision that would change everything. "Lily," he said, forcing a smile, "I just remembered something I need to take care of. Why don't you go ahead and brief Agent Hawkins? I'll catch up with you later." Lily looked at him quizzically. "Are you sure? After Maxwell's threat, I don't think we should be separating." Ethan squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It'll be fine. I just need to tie up a loose end. I won't be long, I promise." As Lily reluctantly headed into the FBI building, Ethan felt a pang of guilt for lying to her. But he couldn't risk her life. Whatever Maxwell had planned, whatever secrets were about to be revealed, Ethan would face them alone. He hailed a taxi, giving the driver the address of the abandoned plant. As the city streets gave way to industrial wasteland, Ethan's mind wandered back to the night that had set all of this in motion. 5 years ago. The night was moonless, a thick blanket of clouds obscuring the stars. Ethan Fairchild, rising star of the legal world, crouched behind a rusted barrel, his heart pounding in his chest. He had followed a trail of whispers and buried documents to this desolate place, certain he was on the verge of uncovering the biggest environmental scandal of the decade. A beam of light cut through the darkness, and Ethan instinctively pressed himself closer to the ground. Voices drifted on the night air, growing closer. "Are you sure about this, Max?" The speaker sounded nervous, his voice quavering slightly. "Don't be a coward, Brad." The second voice was colder, more authoritative. "This is business. The EPA's new regulations would bankrupt us. This is a necessary evil." Ethan's blood ran cold as he recognized the voices. Maxwell Goldcrest and Brad Thompson, the CEO and CFO of Goldcrest Industries. He had suspected corporate involvement, but to catch the top executives red-handed. The sound of sloshing liquid and the acrid smell of chemicals filled the air. Ethan risked a peek around the barrel, his camera at the ready. What he saw made his stomach churn. Maxwell and Brad, along with a group of workers, were dumping barrels of toxic waste directly into a storm drain. The chemicals hissed and bubbled as they disappeared into the city's water system. Ethan's finger pressed the camera's shutter, capturing image after damning image. But in his excitement, he forgot to disable the flash. A burst of light illuminated the scene, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. Maxwell's head snapped up, his eyes locking with Ethan's across the yard. "Intruder!" Maxwell bellowed. "Get him!" What followed was a chaos of shouting, running, and the deafening crack of gunshots. Ethan fled into the night, clutching his camera like a lifeline. He had his evidence, but at what cost? The taxi's sudden stop jolted Ethan back to the present. The abandoned chemical plant loomed before him, a rusted hulk against the setting sun. This was where his old life had ended. Would tonight mark the beginning of something new, or the final chapter in the tragedy of Ethan Fairchild? With a deep breath, Ethan stepped out of the taxi and into the gathering shadows. Whatever Maxwell had planned, whatever secrets were about to be revealed, he was ready to face them. As he approached the plant's main entrance, a figure emerged from the darkness. Maxwell Goldcrest, looking far less polished than in his media appearances, stood before him. The once powerful CEO now had the haggard appearance of a hunted man, but his eyes still burned with the same ruthless determination Ethan remembered. "Fairchild," Maxwell said, his voice a mixture of contempt and grudging respect. "I wasn't sure you'd come alone." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I'm here, Maxwell. Now what's this about? What game are you playing?" Maxwell's laugh was hollow, devoid of any real mirth. "Game? Oh, Ethan. This was never a game. This is war. A war you started 5 years ago when you stuck your nose where it didn't belong." "I exposed your crimes," Ethan shot back. "You're the one who chose to dump toxic waste, to put profits over people's lives." "Spare me your sanctimonious bullshit," Maxwell snarled. "You have no idea what it takes to run a company, to compete in this cutthroat world. Sometimes, hard choices have to be made." Ethan took a step forward, his anger rising. "Hard choices? You poisoned an entire community. People died, Maxwell. Children got sick. All so you could pad your bottom line." For a moment, something like regret flashed across Maxwell's face. But it was quickly replaced by his usual mask of cold determination. "And what about you, Ethan? Are your hands so clean?" Maxwell reached into his jacket, pulling out a thick manila envelope. "Did you really think I wouldn't dig into your past? That I wouldn't find every skeleton in your closet?" Ethan's heart raced. What could Maxwell have possibly uncovered? 5 years ago, Maxwell continued, after that night here at the plant, you disappeared. Everyone thought the great Ethan Fairchild had run away, tail between his legs. But that's not the whole story, is it? Maxwell opened the envelope, pulling out a series of photographs. Even from a distance, Ethan could see they were surveillance photos of himself in various locations around the world. "You didn't just hide," Maxwell said, his voice filled with a twisted kind of admiration. "You hunted. Rio de Janeiro, Moscow, Dubai, you followed the money, didn't you? Tracked down every shell company, every corrupt official who had taken our bribes." Ethan's mind reeled. How could Maxwell know about that? "But you didn't just gather evidence," Maxwell pressed on, his voice rising. "No, the great crusader for justice got his hands dirty. Hong Kong, 2020, a Goldcrest subsidiary mysteriously burns to the ground. Tokyo, 2021, one of our top researchers has a fatal accident in his lab. And let's not forget about poor Jimmy Chin in Singapore. How's that prosthetic hand working out for him?" Each accusation hit Ethan like a physical blow. He had done what was necessary, told himself it was for the greater good. But hearing it laid out like this. "You're no better than me, Fairchild," Maxwell said, a triumphant gleam in his eye. "We're cut from the same cloth, you and I. Both willing to do whatever it takes to achieve our goals. The only difference is, I admit it." Ethan stood frozen, the weight of his past actions crashing down upon him. He had justified every decision, every morally ambiguous choice, by telling himself it was for the greater good. But hearing it all laid out like this, by his nemesis no less, made him question everything. "You're wrong, Maxwell," Ethan finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "I made mistakes. I crossed lines I shouldn't have. But I was trying to stop you, to prevent more people from getting hurt. You were only ever out for yourself." Maxwell's laugh was bitter. "Keep telling yourself that, Fairchild. But we both know the truth. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your FBI friends and tell them you've decided to recant your testimony. You'll tell the world that you fabricated evidence against Goldcrest Industries as part of a personal vendetta." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "And why would I do that?" Maxwell's smile was cold as he held up his phone. On the screen was a live video feed of Lily, sitting in the FBI office, unaware she was being watched. "Because if you don't, Ms. Chin will meet with an unfortunate accident. It would be a shame if her brake lines were to fail on her drive home, wouldn't it?" Rage boiled up inside Ethan. "You bastard," he snarled, taking a step towards Maxwell. "If you touch her, I swear I'll." "You'll what?" Maxwell interrupted, his finger hovering over a button on his phone. "One press, Fairchild, and it's all over for her. Now, make the call." Ethan's mind raced, searching for a way out. He couldn't let Lily be harmed, but he also couldn't let Maxwell win, couldn't let all their sacrifices be for nothing. As he reached for his phone, a voice rang out from the shadows. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mr. Goldcrest." Sophia stepped into view, her gun trained steadily on Maxwell. Behind her, a team of FBI agents emerged, led by Agent Hawkins. Maxwell's face contorted with rage. "What is this? How did you? Did you really think Ethan would come alone?" Sophia said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. "We've been tracking you since you fled the country. Every move, every contact. And now, it's over." As the FBI agents moved in to apprehend Maxwell, Ethan felt a wave of relief wash over him. But it was short-lived as he realized the implications of what had just transpired. "The video of Lily," he said, turning to Agent Hawkins. "Is she safe?" Hawkins nodded. "Ms. Chin is fine. The feed Mr. Goldcrest showed you was a recording from earlier today. She's been under our protection the entire time." As Maxwell was led away in handcuffs, still shouting threats and promises of revenge, Ethan found himself face to face with Sophia. The woman he had once loved, who had broken his heart and now had helped save him. "Thank you," he said softly. "For everything. But why? After all this time, why help me?" Sophia's eyes were filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Because it was the right thing to do, Ethan. And because I never stopped caring about you. Even when I thought you had become the very thing you once fought against." The weight of unspoken words hung between them, years of pain and misunderstanding laid bare in a single moment. But before Ethan could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Ethan!" He turned to see Lily running towards him, her face a mixture of relief and concern. As she threw her arms around him, Ethan felt a surge of emotions he couldn't quite name. "I was so worried," Lily said, her voice muffled against his chest. "When you didn't come back, I knew something was wrong. I'm so glad you're okay." As Ethan held Lily close, he caught Sophia's eye over her shoulder. There was a moment of understanding between them, a silent acknowledgement of what might have been and what could never be again. Sophia nodded slightly, a bittersweet smile on her face, before turning to join Agent Hawkins in processing the scene. In the days that followed, the full story of Goldcrest Industries' downfall dominated the news cycle. Ethan and Lily found themselves hailed as heroes, their faces plastered across every media outlet. The truth about Ethan's past came to light as well, but rather than condemnation, he found a surprising amount of public support. People understood the lengths he had gone to in his quest for justice, even if they didn't entirely condone his methods. As the dust began to settle, Ethan found himself standing in front of the California State Bar Association, awaiting the decision on whether his law license would be reinstated. The hearing had been intense, with every aspect of his past scrutinized and debated. As the chairwoman cleared her throat, Ethan felt Lily's hand slip into his, a silent show of support. "Mr. Fairchild," the chairwoman began, her voice stern but not unkind, "this panel has carefully reviewed your case, including your actions both before and after your disbarment. While we cannot condone some of the methods you employed in your pursuit of justice, we also cannot ignore the significant positive impact your efforts have had." She paused, and Ethan felt his heart race. "It is the decision of this panel that your law license be reinstated, effective immediately. However," she held up a hand as a murmur went through the room, "you will be subject to a 2-year probationary period, during which your activities will be closely monitored. We trust, Mr. Fairchild, that you will use this second chance wisely." As the room erupted in applause, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He turned to Lily, seeing his own joy reflected in her eyes. "Congratulations, counselor," she said with a smile, before pulling him into a kiss that promised a future brighter than either of them had dared to hope for. But even as Ethan celebrated this personal victory, he knew that his fight was far from over. Maxwell Goldcrest might be behind bars, but the system that had allowed men like him to thrive was still in place. There were other corporations out there, other CEOs willing to put profit over people's lives. As he and Lily left the hearing, hand in hand, Ethan made a silent vow. He would use his reinstated license, his hard-won knowledge, and his newfound platform to continue the fight. Not through violence or sabotage, but through the legal system he had once lost faith in. He would be a voice for those who couldn't speak for themselves, a champion for environmental justice and corporate accountability. The sun was setting over Los Angeles as they walked down the courthouse steps, casting the city in a golden glow. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly hopeful about the future. "So, what now?" Lily asked, squeezing his hand. Ethan smiled, pulling her close. Now we get to work. There's still a lot of good to be done in this world, and I intend to do my part." That is, if you're willing to stick around for the ride. Lily's answering smile was radiant. Try and stop me, Fairchild. As they walked off into the sunset, Ethan reflected on the strange and winding path that had led him to this moment. From celebrated lawyer to disgraced fugitive, from anonymous janitor to unlikely hero. It hadn't been an easy journey, but standing here now, with Lily by his side and a renewed sense of purpose in his heart, he wouldn't have changed a thing. Epilogue, 1 year later. The offices of Fairchild and Chin Environmental Law were a far cry from the opulent corridors of Goldcrest Industries. Housed in a converted warehouse in downtown Los Angeles, the space buzzed with the energy of a team dedicated to fighting for environmental justice. Ethan stood at the window of his modest office, looking out over the city he had once nearly given up on. So much had changed in the past year, yet in many ways, he felt he had come full circle. A knock at the door pulled him from his reverie. Lily entered, a stack of files in her arms and a smile on her face that still made Ethan's heart skip a beat. "The Clayton case files you asked for," she said, setting them on his desk. "And don't forget, we have that meeting with the community organizers from Riverside County at 2. Ethan nodded, marveling not for the first time at how seamlessly they had transitioned from reluctant allies to partners in every sense of the word. Lily had surprised everyone, including herself, by discovering a passion for environmental law. She was now studying part-time for her law degree while working as the firm's lead investigator. "Thanks, Lily," he said, pulling her in for a quick kiss. "What would I do without you?" Her laugh was music to his ears. "Probably still be mopping floors and plotting revenge." As they shared a moment of light-hearted banter, Ethan's phone buzzed with a news alert. His expression grew serious as he read the headline. "What is it?" Lily asked, concern creeping into her voice. Ethan handed her the phone. The headline read, "Breaking, Maxwell Goldcrest found dead in prison cell, apparent suicide." They stood in stunned silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history with the man settling over them. I don't know how to feel about this," Ethan finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily squeezed his hand. "It's okay to have mixed emotions, Ethan. He caused a lot of pain, but he was still a human being." Ethan nodded, grateful as always for Lily's empathy and wisdom. "You're right. I hope he found some peace in the end." As they stood there, contemplating the complex legacy of Maxwell Goldcrest, another alert came through. This one made Ethan's eyes widen in disbelief. "Lily, look at this," he said, handing her the phone once more. The new headline read, "Goldcrest Estate donates billions to environmental causes, late CEO's will cites desire for redemption." Lily gasped. "Do you think, could he have had a change of heart?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, his mind reeling. "I don't know. Maybe in those final months, facing his own mortality, he realized the true cost of his actions. Or maybe this is his way of trying to rewrite his legacy." "Either way," Lily said softly, "it's going to make a huge difference for a lot of people. All those communities affected by Goldcrest's pollution, this could fund cleanup efforts for years." Ethan nodded, a complex mixture of emotions swirling within him. "You're right. Whatever his motivations, we can use this to do a lot of good." As they stood there, contemplating the strange turns life could take, Ethan was struck by a sudden realization. In a way, both he and Maxwell had been given second chances. Ethan had used his to try and make amends, to fight for what was right. And now, in death, Maxwell seemed to be doing the same. "You know," Ethan said, a small smile playing on his lips, "I think there's a lesson in all of this. About redemption, about the power of choice. Maybe we should start a scholarship program for students who want to pursue environmental law or sciences." Lily's eyes lit up. "That's a wonderful idea. We could call it the second chance scholarship. As they began to excitedly discuss the possibilities, Ethan felt a sense of peace wash over him. The journey that had begun in anger and a thirst for vengeance had led him here, to a place of purpose, of love, and of hope for the future. The path forward wouldn't always be easy. There would be more battles to fight, more corporations to hold accountable. But with Lily by his side and a renewed faith in the power of justice, Ethan knew they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the sun began to set over Los Angeles, casting a warm glow through the office window, Ethan pulled Lily close. Together, they looked out over the city they had fought so hard to protect, ready to face whatever the future might hold. In that moment, Ethan realized that true redemption wasn't about erasing the past, but about using it to build a better future. And that was exactly what he intended to do, one case at a time.